The author of the work is Homer. It was probably written down in the 8th century BC. A council of the gods took place on Mount Olympus, during which Athena interceded for Odysseus. He was the king of Ithaca, thanks to whom the Greeks won the Trojan War. It was Odysseus who came up with the idea of the famous Trojan horse, which contributed to the victory in the war through deception. After the fall of Troy, Odysseus set off on his journey back home. Unfortunately, due to many adversities, he could not reach his destination. Therefore, Athena asked Zeus to show him mercy. Zeus explained that Odysseus had angered Poseidon, the god of the sea, and that was why his wanderings had lasted so long. However, he decided to make it easier for Odysseus to return home. Upon hearing this, Athena took the form of a man and went to Ithaca to speak with Telemachus, the son of Odysseus. When she arrived, she saw the royal palace full of suitors. It turned out that during the king's absence, many men wanted to take his place and marry Penelope. Odysseus's wife, however, wanted no part of it. She decided to use a trick. She promised to choose one of the suitors as her husband once she finished weaving a shroud for her father-in-law. To delay completing the garment, she unraveled at night the fabric she had worked on during the day. Athena, in the form of a man, prophesied to Telemachus his father's return home. She also advised him to drive out all the suitors and go to Pylos and Sparta, where he could gather information about his father. When Athena disappeared, Telemachus realized that he had been speaking with a deity. Telemachus tried to drive away the unwanted guests, but he failed. Next, he sailed to Pylos, where he visited Nestor, who had fought alongside Odysseus at Troy. The old man told him that after the capture of the city, Odysseus and his men set off for home, but a storm separated the ships and only a few managed to return safely. Nestor knew nothing more and advised Telemachus to go to Menelaus, the king of Sparta, who was the last to return from Troy. So Telemachus continued his journey. A wedding was taking place at the court of King Menelaus. The king was convinced that Odysseus would return one day, as the god Proteus had prophesied. Meanwhile, in Ithaca, the suitors found out that Telemachus had left the island. One of them, named Antinous, decided to lie in wait for the young man in the strait between Samos and Ithaca. He wanted to kill him in an ambush, believing it would make it easier to break Penelope's resistance. Athena went to Zeus again and pleaded for Odysseus. She also added that his son, Telemachus, was in danger. Zeus advised Athena to watch over the young man. As for Odysseus, he decided to act and sent Hermes with a message to Calypso to finally set Odysseus free. The nymph was devastated by the news, but decided not to oppose Zeus's decision. Calypso had been holding Odysseus captive because she was madly in love with him. Odysseus built a raft within 4 days and set out on his journey. After 17 days, he spotted the Phaeacian mountains. Then, the hostile Poseidon spotted him. The god of the sea churned the waters, causing Odysseus to capsize and fall off the raft. Only the help of supernatural forces allowed Odysseus to survive. Athena calmed the storm, and Odysseus reached the shore. He was so exhausted that he fell asleep immediately. On the shore, he was found by Nausicaa, the daughter of the king of the Phaeacians. Thanks to her, Odysseus reached the royal court, where he recounted his adventures. The king of the Phaeacians, Alcinous, promised him help and gave him a ship. Odysseus told many stories. After the fall of Troy, they set off on their journey home. Along the way, they reached the land of the Lotus-Eaters, who fed on lotus flowers that made people forget everything, even who they were. The soldiers eagerly feasted on the lotus flowers, causing them to forget everything, and they surely would have stayed on the island until death. Only Odysseus did not taste them. He brought the sailors back to the ship by force, where he tied them down and sailed away. On their further journey, they landed on the island of the Cyclopes, meaning one-eyed giants. When Odysseus and his crew landed on the island, they entered a nearby cave. There, they were surprised by the arrival of the Cyclops Polyphemus, who was a shepherd and the son of the god Poseidon. Polyphemus blocked the entrance and devoured several crew members. Fortunately, Odysseus came up with an idea and gave the giants some wine. When the giant asked for his name, Odysseus replied that his name was Nobody. Polyphemus got drunk and fell asleep. Then Odysseus and his companions sharpened a wooden stake and heated it in the fire. Next, they drove it into Polyphemus's single eye. The blinded giant began to call out to the other Cyclops on the island. When asked what had happened, he replied, "Nobody has blinded me," which caused his call to be ignored. Furious, Polyphemus rolled away the boulder and stood in the entrance, intending to catch the passing sailors. Odysseus then came up with another idea. They all hid under the rams, clinging to their underbellies. Polyphemus thought it was just the animals going outside, so he let them out. He did not know that the sailors had sneaked out underneath them as well. Driven by pride, once he was at a safe distance, Odysseus revealed his true name to the Cyclops, who then cursed him. This brought the wrath of Poseidon upon Odysseus, who subsequently thwarted his plans to return to Ithaca. On their further journey, they reached the island of the god of the winds, Aeolus. He was also called Aeolus. So remember that Aeolus is the same god as Aeolus. He was the god of the winds. Aeolus gave the travelers a bag full of winds that could hinder their journey. He forbade them from opening it until they returned to Ithaca. As the sailors were sailing home, they were so curious about what was inside the bag that they opened it. The adverse winds escaped and caused the ship to turn around and sail in the opposite direction of Ithaca. They arrived back at the island of Aeolus, but seeing that the sailors had not listened to him, he became very angry and refused them further help. On their further journey, they reached the land of the Laestrygonians, who were giants and cannibals. Most of the ships were destroyed, and the sailors were eaten. Only Odysseus's ship remained, which set off on its further journey. Thus, he reached the island of Aeaea, which was inhabited by the sorceress Circe, who immediately turned part of the sailors into pigs. Only Odysseus managed not to be transformed thanks to the herbs he received from Hermes. Odysseus convinced Circe to lift the spell from his companions. They spent a year on the island. During this time, Odysseus became entangled in an affair with Circe, which resulted in the birth of Telegonus. Finally, they decided to leave the island. Circe advised them to first go to Hades, where they could gather information on how to reach Ithaca from the prophet Tiresias. And so they did. In Hades, he met Jocasta, Leda, Ariadne, and Alcmene, as well as the souls suffering in Tartarus, Sisyphus and Tantalus. He also came across the soul of his deceased mother, who informed him that Penelope was faithful. Tiresias told Odysseus that Poseidon was taking revenge on him for blinding his son. Odysseus and his companions set off on their further journey, passing near the land of the Sirens. The Sirens of Greek mythology did not resemble the modern, fish-tailed mermaids we know from popular culture or fairy tales. Instead, they were half-woman, half-bird creatures who lured unfortunate souls with their singing. Anyone who heard their song was spellbound and did everything to reach them, only to meet their death. Odysseus ordered all crew members to block their ears so they could hear nothing. He, however, commanded them to tie him to the mast as he desperately wanted to hear their song. This ruse allowed everyone to sail past the Sirens safely. In the next part of the journey, they reached a dangerous strait. One side of it was guarded by Scylla and the other by Charybdis. Scylla was a six-headed monster that devoured people, while Charybdis was a monster that swallowed entire ships. Odysseus did not want to lose his whole vessel, so he sailed closer to Scylla. He lost 6 sailors as a result, but he saved the ship. This is where the saying "between Scylla and Charybdis" comes from. During their further journey, the travelers grew terribly hungry. Despite the warnings, they ate the white cattle belonging to the sun god, Helios. Enraged, Helios went to complain to Zeus, who sent a punishment upon the disobedient sailors and struck them with a lightning bolt that destroyed the entire ship. Only Odysseus survived the disaster. The waves washed him ashore, where he was found by the nymph Calypso. She took care of Odysseus and helped him regain his strength. The magnificent surroundings, Calypso's solitude, and her beauty acted like an aphrodisiac. The nymph wanted to grant Odysseus immortality so that he could be by her side forever. He, however, did not accept the offer. He wanted to return to Penelope and spent whole days staring at the sea. The nymph refused to let him leave. as she kept trying to make him fall in love with her. In total, he spent 7 years there. Only Athena's intervention with Zeus caused the supreme god to order his release. Calypso could hardly accept this decision. Nevertheless, she helped him gather food supplies and sent him on his way on a raft. It was precisely after leaving Calypso's island that Odysseus ended up in the land of the Phaeacians, where, at the court of King Alcinous, he recounted all of these adventures so far. With that, Odysseus concluded the tale of his wanderings. Alcinous, the king of the Phaeacians, gave Odysseus a ship and a crew, sending him on his journey to Ithaca. After some time, the warrior reached an island. There, Athena, disguised as a shepherd, informed him that he was in Ithaca, his beloved home, where he had not been for 20 years. For he had spent 10 years in the Trojan War and another 10 years traveling. The wanderer kissed the ground and thanked the gods for allowing him to return to his homeland. Athena transformed him into an old man so he could punish the suitors. She also told him to go to a nearby herdsman's stead where his loyal servant Eumaeus lived. After that, she vanished and went to Sparta to meet Telemachus, Odysseus' son. There, she told him to return to Ithaca immediately, which he did. When he reached the island, he went straight to the swineherd Eumaeus, where he met his father. Together, they devised a plan to get rid of Penelope's suitors, who had been faithfully waiting for her husband for 20 years. Next, Odysseus, disguised as an old beggar, went to his estate. There, only his old dog, Argos, recognized him. The faithful animal, having finally seen his master after 20 long years, took his last breath and died. At the manor, a feast was taking place as usual, attended by the suitors. They despised the newly arrived beggar. When the feast ended, Penelope appeared in the hall and confessed how much she missed her husband. Her trick with weaving the shroud had been discovered, and she was finally forced to choose one of the suitors as a husband. Even her parents began to urge her to remarry. She then offered the old man a comfortable place to sleep, but he refused. The queen ordered Eurycleia to wash the guest's feet according to custom. The old woman, who had once been Odysseus' nurse, recognized him by a scar on his leg. However, he urged her to keep the secret. Afterwards, Odysseus spoke with Penelope, who revealed that she intended to put the suitors to the test. The one who could shoot an arrow through 12 axes with a single shot would become her husband. In the past, only Odysseus had ever succeeded in such a feat. The next day, during the banquet, the long-awaited trial took place. None of the suitors were up to the task. Then, despite their mocking, the beggar stepped up to compete. To the surprise of those gathered, with a steady movement, he drew back the bowstring and shot the arrow through the 12 axes. Immediately following this, Telemachus, along with Odysseus and their servants, took up the fight against the suitors. All of Odysseus' opponents were slain, and after 20 years of separation, Penelope was reunited with her husband once again.